Welcome to the Transformational podcast, a conversation between brothers about practical ways faith is impacting our lives. If you are inspired through this episode, please leave a review and share this podcast with others. We hope you will join us on this journey as we are learning to let faith change the way we live.
Welcome to the Transformational podcast. My name's Chris. I'm the pastor from Paradise. My brother Robert is on the other side, the Marine from Maryland. Hey, man, it's been a busy week, and I know it's been busy for me. I think it's been busy for you as well. And so we're actually recording at a time we don't normally record. But, man, I was thinking, how do we live it up any more than this? Let's do a podcast on a Friday night late. That's the way. That's how you know, man. We're living life on the edge, bro.
Yeah, I know. We're living it to the fullest. Well, Chris, it's funny. I texted you. I said, "Hey, dude, I need to record tonight because, or it was either late tonight or late Saturday night because Joshua has a drumline event." Away kind of, I think at King's Dominion it's actually not King's Dominion, it's next door at a high school. So anyway, we're going there tomorrow and we won't get back till late. And so it's been a blistering week for me in that I spent for the first 4 days, I was at work, and I use air quotes here, at work, but I was on the road or traveling to or from the Pentagon or to or from DC pretty much most of the week except for the Thursday. And so
I was laughing with somebody today about how casually you talk about going to the Pentagon. I was like, I was at the Pentagon today. That's like me saying, I was at the grocery store today. Yeah, right. Like, really? I think there's a little bit difference there, Rob.
Chris, I actually walked down a new hallway. I think, did you ever come up when I was here?
I want to. I don't know if it's even an option anymore, but
I mean, it is. But I walked down a new hallway this week and saw some of these just amazing oil paintings. Every part of the Pentagon is a little bit of it's like a museum. And so you get to learn about George MacArthur. If you sit and read the George MacArthur hallway, you get to learn about flight tests. You get to learn about the Tuskegee Airmen if you want to do that. Space Force, Marines. I mean, it's all there. Coast Guard, the National Guard. I mean, every bit of it is a museum. And so, yes, there are working spaces within this giant museum, but they keep a lot of artifacts and things like that on the walls and in, appropriate cages and this stuff. So it every time I go, I don't super enjoy for whatever meeting that I have to be there for, but I do make the most of every opportunity. And then I do go around and I try to see something. And so I saw some really neat oil paintings this week that were just honestly just really cool. The Tuskegee Airmen.
So you've been to you worked in the Pentagon for a little while, and you go there quite often. What percentage of the Pentagon do you feel like you've seen at this point?
Less than 50.
Yeah,
just the hallways. Okay, and if we're talking,
that's what I mean. Just hallways.
Hallways. Yeah, less than 50, easily less than 50.
Because that place is huge, man.
It is ginormous. Yeah. It is. It actually even runs like a ship in the way that they label their building or label their rooms. It goes by what floor it's on, what ring it's in, and then what hallway it's on, and then you get to what door it's on. And so it's crazy the way it's all set up.
Anyway, but I laugh about that because I was like, Robert just talks about the Pentagon. Like, I went to the grocery store today. I'm like, I don't know. I think that there's more to that than that. But anyway. Yeah.
Well, the other thing I did, Chris, which was interesting. Well, I did two things, but the one is I went to this trade show called Modern Day Marine, and I was asked to speak on stage for my program, and it was really funny. Is that
where they showcased Captain America?
Yeah, it was me. No, I'm kidding.
It was nice. All right, just go ahead. Sorry, you asked to speak.
Yeah,
because you're Captain America. Go ahead.
Right. No, I'm joking. Yeah. But the guy that was going to introduce me, this is why it's funny. The guy that was going to introduce me, he's like, so it's Robert Hurst. He wants to make sure he has my name right. And I looked at him and I go, just introduce me as Timmy. And he's like, Colonel. No. I said, just Timmy. Just introduce me as Timmy. And he's like, I go, it only feels weird to you. I promise everyone else it'll be normal. And just as I said that, Chris, a buddy of mine who retired a couple years back happens to be walking down the aisle and he yells out, Timmy. And the guy starts laughing. And so he introduced me as Timmy, and it was my way to get up on the stage. And it was fun. I had fun with it. I have fun with those things. I just figure like it could be really boring because I tell people about what we're doing in the program office right now with the V22, or I could have fun. And so I did. I chose to have fun. And then yesterday I went to a retirement of a dude who served 35 years.
Nice.
Yeah, 3.5 decades.
Nice. That's awesome.
Super old. It was fun. It was fun to be there. But I'm getting onto that thing where I'm like, woo, I've been on the road quite a bit.
Yeah. You're wearing your V22 representing your office today in your pullover there. Your quarter zip.
Yeah,
quarter zip and matcha.
It is. Look at that thing. It's pretty nice. Pretty nice. So the merch. But we got a lot going on. Got a lot going on this weekend. What are you up to these past few days?
Man, we've had a couple rounds of tornadoes down here in Texas.
Really?
Yeah. We had one Saturday night that messed up a bunch of homes in our communities that we serve, and so we've had crews out. I went out last Sunday.
Did you get to use a chainsaw? Did anybody trust you with a chainsaw?
Dude, here's the deal, man. I feel a new need to buy a good chainsaw because I've got one in the garage that has not seen oil for over 10 years. So I was like, probably not worth even messing with at this point.
Yeah.
Probably going to need a full rehab before we even try to use it. But then I saw the way that a skill chainsaw cuts through stuff like butter. I was like, all right, maybe I just needed a skill. I don't know. It was pretty, I don't know.
You know what you really need, Chris?
After all was said and done, because I was like picking up trees and but you know what was okay. Let me tell you something cool about this.
Okay, go.
So it happened Saturday night. Sunday morning, we're organizing as fast as we can. We get a group organized to go out Sunday afternoon.
Okay.
I get done with church, get home, and you and I have to do
we did our podcast,
right?
Yep.
Well, the boys were waiting for me after the podcast to be like, Dad, are you ready to go? I'm like, I haven't even eaten lunch yet. And they're like, no, we got to go. And they were so eager to go out and help. Good. I loved it, man. They were eager. And when we got out there, like they helped. They were jumping in there, pulling trees, pulling branches. So it was fun to get to go serve with them. It's definitely a tough time for a lot of people. So I was glad to be able to step up and help with that. And then we had another one that came through Tuesday night close to our areas. And so, we've had crews trying to work.
It's important to be on site. I mean, you have the church, you have the folks who do that. And I think it's meaningful when the church steps up like that. It's really neat.
Yeah. So it was a busy week because of with all that, and then we had some other stuff that we were working on, or that ministry needs that we had to step into this week. That we've been walking through. But then tomorrow morning, my boys wanted to run in the Chase the Chief race, the 5K, and I actually signed up for it. Is there an actual
chief?
Yeah, it's to raise money for the police department's
is the chief fast?
Fund. No, I've got it. But at the same time, and Chief, if you're listening, you know it's true. Just saying.
You'll have to forward him this.
What's that?
You'll definitely have to forward him this one.
I know, I haven't seen it to him. But that being said, it was.
You're gonna run tomorrow. You're gonna run 5K.
And I don't know why I talked myself into it. I don't even know why, but I felt like, man, dude, you're gonna be there, and you're just gonna be standing there waiting, and it's like, oh, come on, just do it, and then your workout for the day. So I was like, okay, I'll do it.
Just gotta jog.
Just gotta jog. I don't have to win. I just have to win. Go. But the problem is, you know how it is, Robert. You know my personality. I'm gonna see people and be like, I gotta beat that person, and then I'm getting in front of that one, and I'm gonna see the next one. I'm gonna be like, I gotta beat that person, and I don't know how to not. Anyway, I don't know what I'm going to do. I think I'm just going to look down the whole time, so I won't know who's in front of me. Anyway, I don't know.
Now your sons will let you know they're in front of you. Don't worry about it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh man. Hey, no, so my sons will beat me. My sons will, especially my oldest son. He's But he's a gazelle, bro.
Yeah.
I'm not catching that kid.
He'll smoke you.
Yeah.
So what was the Lord talking to you this week? Let's do some of your scriptures.
Man, I'm rolling through Psalms. Another Psalm that just jumped out at me this last week. I loved it's Psalm 112, and a lot of it comes to this, Rob. I think back to my years of high school. Like you know that I was not perfect, and it's easy to know that, right? But I never really had a time where had a rebellious streak, where I, chased after the party scene, or
you had fun, but you definitely weren't running, to the extreme. You weren't running to have your wild life or your prodigal years. Like that really wasn't a thing. You were the life of and I'm using the word party, but I was going to say you're the life of any scene, because you would go out and you'd have fun.
I just want to bring fun.
You went out
right?
fun. That's right.
Well, and then college, I look at the same thing, and the reason I point that out, I'm not trying to point to me, but here's what I'm saying is that the world tells us there's certain things you have to do and party things that you have to be a part of. In fact, the thing that I used to hear is, they're just typical teenager, referring to
get that, let that get out of their system, or whatever.
Get out of their system. Go sow their wild oats. We all did it. I'm like, no, we didn't, and we didn't. We don't have to. And I think sometimes people think, man, if I follow God's way, I'm going to be missing out, and maybe, but I think what you're missing out on isn't necessarily ultimately is it something worth missing out on. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, yes. I'm okay missing out on some of that stuff, right?
On things that you want to miss out on,
that bring destruction and bring, hurt and harm and just jack up, your thought process and your life process and your relationships. Like at the end of the day, like it promises way bigger than it ever delivers. In fact, what it delivers is opposite of what it promises. And so as I read through Psalm 112, it was one of those things of going, man, if this is why somebody should follow God and trust his way. Like he tells you, hey, things will just go better. And not just for you, but for generations to come. So I want to read it. Maybe we'll walk through it and we'll pause here or there. But Psalm 112 says, praise the Lord, how joyful are those who fear the Lord and delight in obeying his commands. That fear of the Lord is, I think sometimes people reduce it to just respect or honor, but there is actually the word there is actually one that carries with it the thought of even trembling. It's a deep reverence, but it's also is pertaining to a state of recognizing the greatness, the superiority of God, and going, man, I don't want to mess with that. Like, I want.
Do you think it's do you think it should be a little bit of a both, and meaning that it should be this fear, reverence, because God does call us into relationship. He wants us to be in his presence, but at the same time, when you look at the folks who interacted with the angel of the Lord, which was God, in the Old Testament, every time they fell to their face and they're like, "I'm gonna die. I saw God face to face." Every one of them says that. And not when they see angels, but when they see God. And so I think it is a healthy mix of both.
Yeah, absolutely. Like one of the definitions for the word is actually an awesomeness which causes wonder and astonishment. It is this mix of, oh my gosh,
so much bigger.
But also that deal of going,
oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Like,
right.
I want to honor you. But it's not oh my gosh, I don't want to mess up or he's going to beat me down.
Yeah.
Like that's not the God that he shows himself, but it's still a deal of going, man, I want to walk with this guy because, man, if I get out from under his covering, man, I don't want to experience that. So
I'm gonna miss out.
One of those deals of, it says how joyful are those who fear God, or blessed is actually the word. It's characterized by happiness or being highly favored, divine grace. But it's this idea of going, man, God does something in you. It comes from within, because of your relationship with God. So blessed are those, joyful are those who fear God. And here's the deal. I don't think these two things go together. You can't fear God and not do the second part.
Okay.
He says, and delight in obeying his commands.
Yep.
Here's the deal. If you aren't obeying if you're not willing, if you don't have a desire, if you're not delighting in obeying his commands, then you probably don't have a proper view of God.
Right. Ooh. Well, here's what's funny. I was listening to somebody talk about this week, and I was having this conversation with one of the youth, and the question revolved around the laws in the Old Testament or the rules, and how a lot of times we're like, well, which one of these apply, which don't apply, and I don't really know.
Yeah.
And there were 2 points made that I thought were really salient as we're kind of kicking this off. Is the first point made was, when you have grace, you're allowed to murder as many people as you want.
Still a bad idea.
you just don't want to.
Yeah. Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? When you have a relationship with the Lord and you have grace through him, you're allowed to sin as much as you want. You just don't want to.
Yeah.
You don't want to because you're walking in a relationship and
fellowship. Well, it's not so much that you're allowed to. It's more or less that you're forgiven.
That's right. It's a good way. Yeah. That's a better way of saying it.
Yeah.
Because the other side of that coin, and this is the other piece, is if you make it about the rules, if you make it about the rule-based following, then you've reduced it to the law and you have no relationship. And so the whole purpose is that when we walk in relationship with him, then all of the things he made laws for, which most of the laws are to keep us from getting hurt, they're basically to bring life. Yeah. They bring life. Yeah. Then we get to avoid death. And one of the examples he gave, and I think it's salient, like if you have a kid or, anything that you're trying to keep alive, a dog, a cat, right? Is you're like, don't eat that poison. Yeah. And they're like, well, why? They're like, and you're like, no, I'm serious. Don't eat the poison. And they're like, you're so oppressive, man. You're beating me down and you're constricting me with these rules. And you're like, no, I'm trying to keep you alive.
It's actually because I love you.
I don't want you. Yes. Yeah. And so the point that was kind of made at that time is that when you reduce God's laws to just simply, following them, which ones do I have to follow? Then you're actually kind of missing the point of the relationship. The relationship says, actually, I want to follow those laws. I want to follow those laws because it brings life. And I trust in God. I trust that he wants my best. Yeah. And so I'm going to not eat the poison because it brings pain and suffering and death even. Yeah. And so that's what I think's kind of interesting when we start talking about the kind of the difference between a grace-filled relationship with Jesus, which does bring forgiveness. To your point, doesn't make it allowed, but does bring forgiveness. Yeah. Versus a rule-based one, which that was what Jesus was. He's the propitiation of our sins. So if you don't have Jesus, you don't have forgiveness. Anyway, it was part of the discussion we had this week.
So the idea, though, is that you're not obeying his commands because you have to. You're delighting in obeying his commands. You're not begrudgingly. You're not going, well, we can't do it because God said no. You're doing it going, man, I trust God. I trust his heart. I'm joyful that God's given me these guidelines to live by because they're for my good. And man, I want to live them out because I truly trust that his way is better. All right. So want to.
And it's the foundation.
It is.
That is the foundation of blessing.
So here's what follows. He goes, how joyful, and those are delighting his commands. Here's what he says is the benefit. This is the outcome. Yeah. This is that's right. The reason it matters, and it's the why, right?
It is he says,
why. Hey, here's the thing. Those who delight and obey his commands, fear God, their children will be successful everywhere. Yep. And entire generation of godly people will be blessed. I love that by itself. That you're not just obeying God and delighting in his commands for you. You're doing it for generations to come. And I love this too, because Robert, I don't know if you've ever had this conversation with Dad, but when I was in seminary, we were in a class, I don't know, pastoral care or something. They talked about the percentage of how the percentage of divorce goes up when you come from a broken home, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Well, I just grew up, us growing up, we never heard mom and dad even use the word divorce. Like,
it was not a word.
It wasn't even a concept. It was never a concern. Like,
It
was like one of those things that I actually didn't fully understand it till I got around friends who'd walked through it. And I was like, oh my gosh, like that's that's a real thing, like that a lot of people deal with. Like it was
They
one of
even
those things.
consider it. It's not
Right. It
for
was
us,
just,
it wasn't a word even in the house.
right. It wasn't. And so it was one of those things that it was different for me. And so I asked Dad one day, I was like, Dad, I'm reading about this and the percentage that goes up and blah, 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 blah. I said, but I never heard you and Mom talk about it. And here's one of the things that Dad said that, man, I'm just telling you, I've held on to ever since. He said he had a man come up to him and he said, hey, you need to stop worrying about what you don't want to be. And you need to find someone that has the attributes that you want to become.
That's right.
He says, you've got to make the choice. If the cycle stops with you, will you break the cycle? And dude, it like stuck with me because I think that while that applied to that specific case, I think that applies to all cases. Like anyone can say, hey, the cycle stops with me. And how? By saying, no. In my life, it doesn't matter the way I was raised. It doesn't matter how I grew up. It doesn't matter what my parents did. No, for my life, I'm going to do what it takes to fear God and delight in obeying his commands. And here's what happens is that not just you will be blessed, but your children will be blessed and your children's children. It says an entire generation of godly people will be blessed. And so, man, to me, that's one of those things that you go, man, it's got so much a bigger impact than just you, because Robert, the opposite's true as well.
Yeah.
Is that if you don't follow God's way and you live selfishly and you pursue sin and you might enjoy it for a little while, but it's going to bring disaster into your life and to your family's life. And the reality is there'll be a generation of kids who don't experience God's blessing or could be unless God captures their heart in another way. I'm not saying it's you or nothing else, because God's constantly chasing after us no matter where we are. But what I am saying is, hey, what a great way to set up the next generation. To experience God's blessing by saying, man, for me in my house, we're going to serve the Lord. We're going to pursue him. So an entire generation of godly people will be blessed. Any thoughts on that before we keep going?
No, it is. It echoes things that God established starting even in Genesis as he talks to the saints of the old, which he basically says, because of your righteousness, I'm going to bless your generations to come.
Yeah.
And so it is what I call a godly principle. It's a principle that God lays out. And it's true, I think, not just because God puts his hand of blessing on it, but because what God knows and he understands is, like we talked about earlier, is when you have that foundation of wisdom, that fear of the Lord, you end up then leading your family from that bent. And your family, like you and I, don't know anything about divorce. We don't know anything about certain things that other people had to walk through. And praise Jesus, we didn't have to. And praise Jesus. For those who are listening, that you can be the generational change, just like our father was in our family, because then it actually sets out this foundation. It's like a foundational type thing to where it essentially you set the next generation up for success. Doesn't mean they can't take a hard right.
Anybody can make choices, man.
But I tell you this much. I was like, it is definitely more challenging to take a hard right when you know kind of what life, I should say, when you know the life that following God's word brings, right? It doesn't bring death, it brings life. And so I do see how that generational blessing, it is a foundational, I think, principle that God sets up, but it's just like a little bit like sin. Like you avoid death and you get life. It's just, that's the purpose there. That's the principle.
So it goes on and says, they themselves will be wealthy and their good deeds will last forever. When you look up the word wealthy, it means wealthy. It means it is speaking specifically of an abundance of material possessions and resources. And Robert, I've thought about that before. I think part of it is that when you follow God's way for managing your resources and your finances, and you trust him, and you like, I'm actually teaching on giving this weekend. Like he says over and over, hey, give back to me and invest in things of eternal value. And when you use well to build treasure in heaven, I'm going to give you more.
Yeah.
He says you'll be able to be generous on all occasions. Like it's one of those things that God says, man, if you'll do this. And Robert, I guess I've seen this where it's like, man, there's people who said, man, we're going to honor God. We're going to live within the means He's provided for us. We're going to give back to God. We're going to save the way that God tells us to save, and we're not going to waste money chasing stupid stuff it's just they look up and they're well provided for. Now, what is wealthy? Like, how much do you have to be considered wealthy? The reality is,
so that's where I was going to go.
Most of us in America are wealthy by the world standards, right?
And that's where I was going to go with that. A lot of times we equate wealthy. Honestly, we equate it to our jealousy. We equate it to our covetousness.
Yeah, because we look and say, "I'm not wealthy; they are," because they have.
That's right. Yeah, well, I'm not wealthy; they are. I'm not wealthy; they have more. Right. Yeah. But what I would offer is that when you go and you look at somebody who hasn't followed God's principles, to your point, when you follow God's principles, it sets you up to not just have wealth, but pass on wealth to even your kids. That's even what Proverbs even talks about, and it's because you follow His principles, and those principles are not just life-giving, they also bring blessings that are material in nature and wealth in nature. And so where we get, honestly, where I think a lot of times Christians get off the rails is we have this kind of covetousness in our heart that we don't even recognize. And we're like, well, I'm not wealthy. That Bill Gates, man, now that guy's wealthy. Like, hang on, pause. Are you on the streets?
Yeah.
Do you have a house? Okay, check. And then you kind of move on from there. And it's actually, I think it's interesting too, because the integrity and the righteousness that comes with the wealth in that case, because you do have integrity, you do have righteousness, and that does then generate wealth. You become wealthy, not just in a material sense, and that person that you just can't stand because they're super rich, but they're actually an awful person. Mm-hmm. You come rich in the sense that you do have provision.
Yeah.
You have what you need in the season. God has never left the righteous begging for bread.
But you have something that nobody can buy.
That's right.
A righteous reputation.
That's right.
Your good deeds will last forever, right? Yep. You're earning something that can't be bought, right?
Absolutely.
And
that's true wealth.
Yeah, it's true wealth for sure. It goes on and says, light shines in the darkness for the godly. I'm going to pause there because that's a statement that stands by itself. Light shines in the darkness for the... Hey, here's the reality. We're all going to walk through seasons that feel dark or moments that are dark or the reality is that our generation really hadn't experienced super heavy times, but there were generations here in America that experienced the Great Depression and some crazy economic difficult times. I guess we had the recession several years ago that was like, I'd lost my job during that time and others did. And we experienced, but the reality is that, man, when you're fixed on God, trusting His ways, you have fear of the Lord, you're obeying His commands. He finds a way, even in the dark moments of your life, to shine light in the darkness for the godly, right? There's hope. And that's really the picture is that the godly have hope in the dark, in the dark times of life.
Yeah. This reminds me of times when I was in the woods of Quantico around Virginia. And it's early on in my career. And we have to do this thing called night land nav. We have to basically navigate at night. And you're not allowed to have a flashlight for this, Chris. You literally just get a map and a compass. And the compass glows a little bit.
How
it glows
do you see
enough.
the map?
You can only use
to see the map.
You can only use the map at the starting point. And then as you go through the woods, no flashlights allowed, right? And so you can have like enough light to see then, and you know what the bearing is, and you know what your pace count is. And then you walk across this thing. And Chris, your eyes are open really big, and then you take a few twigs in there, and you're like, okay, I'm going to keep them kind of closed and squinty, but you can't see. And you're going across, and you're longing for any kind of light. But you don't want to get in trouble, so you don't turn your flashlight on. And then all of a sudden, through the woods, you see a prick of light. See a prick of light. Chris, it doesn't even have to be in the right direction 9 times out of 10. You automatically like focus in, hone in, and go towards the light, because in that light, you're like, man, it's a hope thing. Like you're just like, I just want to get out of here, and I want to be out of this darkness. I hope to go that direction. Yeah. And that's what the scripture is saying, is that a lot of times when we're in the midst of that absolute pitch black, poke you in the eye darkness, God is that light, and He's saying, hey, I'm right here. And it is this hope where you're just like, oh, it's almost like, it's just like, you're just like,
Yeah.
And I see that when I see this verse, that's actually what I imagine. I know exactly what it's talking about. It's talking about that time when I can't see anything. And I'm like, oh, thank God there's a light.
Yeah.
There it is.
So there's this light that shines in the darkest time that brings hope in the times that feel hopeless. He says they are generous, compassionate, and righteous. Generous, they're
I love that, by the way.
They take care of people. They give generously. They don't give according to what they have left over. They give according to what God tells them to give.
Yeah.
And that, like, when you start looking at what does generous mean, it's not, hey, if you have a 20 left, then no, God says, no, hey, I want you to take care of this. Okay, but God, no, I want you to take, okay, God, we'll do what you told us to do.
Yeah.
And, but what if, just do what I told you to do, right? They're generous, right? And
it's important.
It is, right? Compassionate. That's fun. It's a fun word, right? I think, but when I think about it, I think about Jesus so many times when, like, he comes to the crowds and he says he saw the crowds and had compassion on them, right?
Yeah.
Compassion is an interesting thing. We have compassion for our kids and compassion for those that we love and we like and that are like us. We struggle to have compassion for those who maybe aren't like us or who've made poor choices or made poor choices, hard people.
Yeah.
And the godly person, man, what drives his compassion?
Right.
His love for God.
Yeah.
Because he looks and sees, man, that's the person that God loves. I don't know their story, but you know what? Their story is actually what has probably set them up to be where they are. And maybe, man, I'm blessed for the story that I have and the way that God's worked in my life. Maybe God wants to work in their life, right? There's a compassion that comes from understanding the bigger picture, the fact that God loves that person and the brokenness of life affects everybody differently. Anyway, compassionate, right?
For sure.
And then he says in righteous, which is just basically living according to God's standards. Like that's his standard for living. It's not, hey, what is everyone else doing? And what's acceptable in the culture? He goes, no. What does God say? That's my standard.
No, I think somebody who's kind of following God in that sense and sees him as a light and does that thing, they're found to be, generous. The folks that will give you the shirt off their back, that are compassionate and they see the best in others. And we're kind of talking about with the wealthy piece, they don't have any kind of deceit in them. Yeah. I think in Nathaniel, when Jesus is like, there's a man that has no deceit in him. And he's like, what? Because he just said it how it was. Yeah. But in a way that was compassionate in a lot of ways.
So anyway, I'm going to speed up for the rest of these because it kind of builds on it. It says, good comes to those who lend money generously and conduct their business fairly. They're not greedy people. Such people will not be overcome by evil. Those who are righteous will be long remembered. So such people will not be overcome by evil. Why? Because their focus is on honoring God and letting God be their standard, and they fear God and they delight in obeying his commands, right? So they're not overcome by evil. Their righteousness, once again, we're coming back to this idea of righteousness. Their reputation for living God's way will be long remembered, right?
I love that.
I do too, man. What a great reputation. I think about it, Robert, sometimes because I do a lot of funerals in the ministry world, and you hear what people say about different people at their funeral, and like, man, I love it when you hear someone, and everybody who talks about him, they're like, man, that guy loved God. And I saw that guy I ever talked about. Hey, you know what? That guy always did the right thing. He always wanted to honor God. He always, what a reputation. It's one of those things.
Think about Miss Dana Morgan, Oh, yeah. You think about her and you're like, oh, that is a woman of God.
Yeah.
That's who she was.
Yeah. So it says they do not fear bad news. Why? Because they trust God. God said he's going to take care of them. So they don't fear bad news because God's got this, right?
Their hearts are steadfast, trusting in the Lord.
Yeah.
I mean, it just says it. Like
they confidently trust.
You don't even have to ask, hey, why do they not fear bad news? I don't think, it says it there. Because they trust in the Lord.
Yeah. They confidently trust the Lord to care for them.
That's right.
It says they are confident and fearless. They are confident and fearless. I love that. That's one that I want to teach my boys, right?
Right. That's what I was just thinking.
I don't want them to be cocky. but I want them to be confident and fearless as they walk through life, not because of their ability, but because of the God that they serve.
Yeah.
And trusting in him in such a way. And he says, and they can face their foes triumphantly. He says they share freely. There we are again, generosity, right? And give generously to those in need. Their good deeds will be remembered forever. They make a lasting impact. Their generosity leaves a legacy, right?
Yeah.
They will
Let's talk about generosity for 2 seconds, just because this is one of the things that I've been
hitting it again. So yeah.
Well, here's the thing. I've been sort of tooling this in our house. You know, you talk about the fact that the generational change, right? And it's not that we don't have a generational change or tendency towards generosity, but one of the things that I've been trying to demonstrate in my house to my kids is what I would almost call radical generosity.
Yeah.
Like, I know I'm going to use something super straw man because we support various ministries and the rest, but even something as simple as tipping. And I'm going to use tipping, and they're like, "Well, what do you give?" And I'm like, "Well, honestly, if I feel like they even smell that I'm a Christian, I'm radically generous."
Yeah.
And I want to make sure that it's not, some percentage. It's something that would make them go, "Huh." And part of it is I'm trying to challenge the we'll call it the tight nature that we've drilled into our kids, which is awesome. Our kids are very tight,
frugal,
frugal, and that's amazing. That's awesome. I'm glad they're there, but I'm also trying to get them to recognize it's not theirs.
Yeah,
it's not theirs, and God calls us to be generous.
Yeah.
He calls us to be generous because it's an acknowledgement that it's not ours.
So I got a funny story.
Go.
Brock, he's our super. Actually, they both are.
Yeah.
But Brock has had a couple times that once he went and got a snow cone. We gave him, I want to say it was a 20, and he and his brother a snow cone. And we came back and was like, Where's my change? It's like I just let him keep the change. I was like, you gave him like a $10 tip. You gave him a bigger tip than the snow cones cost themselves, bro. It's like, all right, we have to talk about tipping. Well, just recently, they've gotten little debit cards that are connected to just our easy way for us to send money with our kids to events, right?
For sure.
And so we put money on it, whatever. Well, he was at a baseball game the other day, and like we're getting all these things where it eats up what we put on his debit card. We're like, what in the world? Yeah. He bought food for like 4 or 5 of his different friends. And we're like, okay. But here's a great picture though. He is wildly generous because he recognizes it's not his, right? But
that's so hilarious.
But at the same time, isn't that the way we should be with the resources that God has given us? That we look and go, hey, it belongs to God. He wants us to do this. We're going to do this because it doesn't belong to us.
And would you want your son any other way?
No, dude. I love that.
Would God want us any other way?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
It's not ours. I think radical generosity is something that then I think it also changes our heart. So when we have this covetous nature, this covetous eye to something else, it actually, I think it dampens that, almost turns it off to where you realize how rich you truly are.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard it said that generosity loosens the grip of greed.
Amen.
So,
anyway, sorry, I had to
tip in a little bit. I think that's good.
Something we've been working on in our house a little bit.
It says that they will have influence and honor. And now I think that's interesting because Jesus tells us when he walks to use your resources to build a good reputation with people and to earn people's respect, to influence others. So I think that's great. He goes, hey, if you follow God's plan for the way you use your resources, you're going to gain influence and honor. Yep. It says the wicked will see this and be infuriated. They will grind their teeth in anger. They will slink away their hopes thwarted. Here's what I love about that statement in and of itself, is because the wicked represent those who reject God's way. Why do they reject God's way? Because they want everything that God has promised, but they want to try to get it their own way.
Yeah.
And so when people don't follow their rules for living their way, the way the world tells you have to live, and yet God says, hey, I'm going to pour out my favor here. I'm going to bless these people. And they're going to have joy, and they're going to have peace, and they're going to have a great reputation. And they're going it irritates the wicked.
Absolutely does.
Because they're not doing it the way They did it, yet God's blessing it. And so, man,
I think it's also it's a reminder. That last part is a reminder that when you don't do it God's way, then you're going to end up living apart from God, and living apart from God is death.
Yeah.
And so it should actually encourage us to remain, I guess you could say, aligned, eyes on God, committed, steadfast to God's will and to what he wants us to do, not because we're doing the rules, not because we're doing the law like we talked about earlier, but because his grace and his love and his relationship has given us so much more that we just want to.
Yeah.
We just want to. We want to, because it's an outpouring of him filling us up. And I think that's where the psalmist on that one, he finishes there because he's just trying to say, hey, when you don't do this, it just ends in nothing. It will come to nothing. Yeah. And so I don't know, Chris, I didn't realize how long this went, because this has been a great conversation. Yeah. So I'm going to do my part of the wrap, and I'll let you do yours as we finish up here. You're listening right now and you're probably like, okay, so what is my takeaway? Living righteously, going to the Lord or whatever. It actually comes straight out of verse 1. It says, blessed are those who fear the Lord. Proverbs says the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. You get wisdom and blessing when you start with the fear of the Lord. And when you do that and you live according to his will because you love him, and you choose life versus death, you choose not to eat the poison because he's just trying to keep you alive.
Yeah.
Then he has set the principles up in a way that it doesn't just blesses you, it blesses your family, and it blesses those who come in contact with you because you're generous and righteous in the way that you deal with them.
Yep.
And so, Chris, bring us home.
Yeah, dude, I'm right on with all of that. I love this passage because ultimately here's what he's telling us. If you'll fear God, I'm going to try again. If you'll fear God and follow his ways, you'll find a fulfilling life that you won't find any other way.
Love it.
We hope today's episode has left you encouraged. If you have any questions about what was discussed, be sure to contact us through the show notes. A new episode drops every Monday, so we hope you will subscribe and join us each week as we learn to let faith transform our lives.